let's talk about the national championship next Monday. Obviously, these are early thoughts. We will be back here to break this down a little bit more before the game actually kicks off. But Ohio State Notre Dame is a pretty exciting matchup. I feel like these are two blue bloods. You're going to tell me it's the Rust Belt. What a traditional college football matchup.
Yeah, and one that should be a lot of fun. But yeah, when you talk about like just how many people truly care about this, how big of a game this really is, this one is pretty massive, right?
Yeah.
And for the second year in a row, maybe things will change next year, but for the second year in a row, we don't have an SEC team in this,
Yeah.
which makes us down in the South probably feel a different type of way. But I'm sure the people, in the Northeast, as you would say, or Midwest, are pretty excited. But yeah, I mean, you think about, I mean, when Ohio State lost to Michigan, nobody had them in this game, and when Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois, nobody had them in this game either. And even really
Right.
earlier in the playoffs, like we kind of thought, like, oh, I think we ended up saying, like, oh, if Ohio State got hot, they could be kind of a sneaky pick in this thing.
Yeah.
Although I think Tennessee was your sneaky pick, though, so I'm not giving you any credit for that.
I don't know. I got to go back and look. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
after Tennessee,
now
I
that
don't
I'm
know.
remembering this thing,
I don't, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I picked
but
Ohio State decently early on.
I think we picked. But I think we kind of thought like, oh, well, probably Texas or Oregon will win that side, and then I think we both were like, oh, Georgia will probably win the other side. Like, I don't really see a team that can beat
Yeah.
them, and so, yeah, even in the playoffs, I don't think people thought that Notre Dame would get here, and so, I mean, yeah, it's a fun matchup. I kind of wonder if I wrote this, but did Ohio State just come back down to earth a little bit? Will that make our championship game a little more competitive? Because I certainly don't want to see Ohio
Well,
State just run through them.
no, I don't either. But I also think, what we watched is what we were hoping would happen in a 12-team playoff, right? Is that as you get further along in this playoff, the games get tighter because the competition is more equal. So I don't know if it's that Ohio State came back down to earth. It's probably more that they played a more equal opponent than they did in previous games, in Texas. And do you think that there is a blueprint out there in how to manage your opponent in looking at the film for what Texas did defensively, looking at film to see what Penn State did? Both of these games were very close. And, the Ohio State Texas game, that garbage touchdown at the end, kind of makes it even bigger gap than it actually was in the game. These are two decently close games. Is there a formula out there?
Yeah, there is, but some of it is going to be can Notre Dame, like Notre Dame's a man team too. And so I don't necessarily know that they've played a lot of zone, probably in some matchup stuff they have this year, but they're going to have to go to that. Marcus Freeman's already kind of talked about it. Like they're going to have to figure that out over this next week, and they're going to have to do it because no shot at Notre Dame's defensive backs, but they can't match up with Ohio State's second or wide receivers. I mean, neither can anybody else's. So that's not a shot.
Nobody can.
So they're going to have to do that a little bit. And then, like I said, I thought that some of Ohio State scoring 21 points offensively was some of themselves slowing themselves down, right? Some of them slowing themselves down. And so can you replicate that? Like, can Ohio State, if they just play a little bit cleaner of a game, probably scores 28, and then you get that strip sack at the end. They probably win that game 35-21, right?
So is it that they need to play a cleaner game, or is it that Texas figured out things defensively that were disruptors for Ohio State?
Maybe a little bit of both. I thought that there was, the one Will Howard interception was because he was trying to force a ball to Jeremiah Smith in triple coverage. They made the play, but I mean, you just got to know not to throw the ball into triple coverage there, right? Yeah. Like I give the defense credit for, I guess, covering the guy, right? Like, doing their assignments, but that's on the QB, right? Like you can't force a ball there. The other, a drop on third down where the guy's a step and a half ahead of the defender. Like to me, it's a little bit of both. Is there a blueprint there? Yes. I just don't know if in like 10 days time, if Notre Dame can replicate what Texas has been doing all season. Like Texas has been a too high zone team all year. Right. It's what gave Georgia trouble, right? And so I think that's really tough to ask them to figure that out like that. And so we'll see. I don't think it's a blowout. I don't think anything like that, but I do think that'll be tough.
So I feel like in recent years, and this isn't always been this way, but in recent years in championship games, the elite quarterback is who wins it, right? And even honestly, getting this far in the playoff is generally reliant on an elite quarterback. The teams that have elite quarterbacks are who make it, and it hasn't always been the case. I think back to like the mid 2000s, late like 2009, 2010. Alabama teams, right? Those were game managers that had a solid run game and great wide receivers and a strong
2008,
defense.
the team won with a running back at quarterback.
But anyway, my point is, I feel like in the last couple of years, we've had elite quarterbacks as lead teams to national championships. That's not really going to be the case in this game with Will Howard and Riley Leonard. Both quarterbacks have had turnovers
No.
just in their previous game that they just played, but also kind of throughout have been. I mean, Will Howard going into this game, I guess we would say potentially had the most solid quarterback play of the playoffs. I just don't know that there has been an elite quarterback really in the playoffs at all. Who has the advantage?
Yeah, I think Will Howard does because of who he's throwing to. But like quarterback play for quarterback play, they're both very, very similar. I thought that Riley Leonard played really well in that fourth quarter. He had some big time throws. Their offense certainly opened it up some, and they certainly were moving the ball pretty effectively. And I think his legs create the same X factor advantage that they did against Penn State, that he can kind of go off at any time. He certainly did on that fourth down. I'm sorry, no, I'm thinking of the wrong thing, but yeah, like certainly did at times. And so, yeah, I would lean, if it was just quarterback for quarterback, I'd lean Riley Leonard, but because of who they're throwing to, I'd probably lean Will Howard still.
What about coaching advantage? Who has the coaching advantage in this? Marcus Freeman not been doing it as long as Ryan Day. Ryan Day has the history of learning under Urban Meyer, and obviously helped guide his teams to successful national championships, but he has not gotten one himself yet. Where is the advantage there?
I don't know. I don't have a great answer for that. Just because I think that both coaching staffs are so good. Like you think about
Yeah,
Al Golden being the defensive coordinator, like he could be a head coach somewhere, right? Like
yeah.
I think that he kind of got a raw deal at Miami. Kind of came in when some sanctions were coming in and stuff. So I think both these teams have excellent coordinators. I think, you obviously
How
think
about
about
tip of
Chip
the hat
Kelly.
to Ryan Day for hiring Chip Kelly, giving up
Yeah.
play calling duties, and
Yeah. I
hiring
think,
Chip Kelly, who was, obviously a former head coach. Uh, I mean, is that why he's here? Is that why he's playing for a national championship? Because he gave up that responsibility?
I think it's probably a big part of it. Like, I don't know that they're here in this situation without it. Now I don't know how hard it is to say throw the ball to your best players, which they're finally doing now. They weren't doing at the end of the season, but yeah. So I don't know. I don't know who has a coaching advantage here. I'd like to think that, like from a head coaching perspective, like Freeman will be a little bit more aggressive, which I think is a big deal sometimes in these games, and I do think that it could make a difference. But I don't know that I would say that one side or the other has a huge advantage over the other. I think it's pretty even. When you look at the coordinators, you look at both. I like both coaches a lot. I think it's really even. Maybe Freeman will be a little bit more aggressive, but he'll probably have to be as a 10-point underdog. So I don't know that that would shock anybody either.
Well, I'm pretty excited for this game on Monday, January 20th, and we will obviously be back before then to break this game down even more for you. Thanks so much for watching this clip from our live show of a peek inside SEC football. If you enjoyed this content and would like to support, we'd love to have you subscribe. We are live every Sunday evening, and we'll be back for another episode soon.